everybody, to Inside Boxing Daily on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. Inside Boxing Daily is brought to you by MyBookie.ag. To find out more about them, go to thegruelingtruth.com, click on the MyBookie.ag banner at the top of the page for up to a 100% cash bonus on your first $300 deposit. I am your co-host for Inside Boxing Daily, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I would like to welcome in my co-host, Jeremiah Preisser. How you doing, Jeremiah?
I'm always well whenever I get to talk boxing with you, Mike, so let's get this thing going, man.
All right, we have a special guest tonight. He wrote one of my favorite boxing books ever, Matt Tales. Help me welcome to the show, Daniel Sisneros. How you doing, Daniel?
Hey, doing good, Mike.
All right,
Jeremiah.
real quick, you want to give us a little overview of the book, where people can buy it, and then we'll carry on from there. I normally would do this at the end of the show, but I have a tendency to forget.
Oh, I appreciate that. You're just like me.
Yeah.
Matt Tales, True Stories from the Bizarre, Brutal World of Pro Boxing. It's published by Pulp Hero Press, and it's available at Amazon. You can get it in paperback or Kindle versions. And it is, hopefully, a pretty fun book. 32 tales of some crazy, funny, sad, brutal things that have happened in boxing. And I think boxing fans will really enjoy it. So I'm working on the second volume of that book, but it'll be a while till that comes out. So for now, it's Matt Tales.
All right, guys. Like I said, I highly suggest that book, that and Intimate Warfare. I think were the two best books I've read over the past year or two. And we're going to go ahead, and there's always bizarre tales in boxing. And we're going to start off with a bizarre tale. Jarrell Miller today was suspended for a whole 6 months. And he only tested positive for 3 different things in his blood system there, Jeremiah. What do you think about a 6-month suspension here?
Well, obviously, the punishment fits the crime there. I mean, it's going to derail his entire career. He'll, it completely eliminates the possibility of him ever making $6 million again. I mean, come on, man. It is what it seems to always be in boxing. It's a slap on the wrist. Yeah, a lot of people are like, okay, well, he's out for 6 months. And he's losing a $6 million payday in the process. The problem with that, in my eyes, is what we talked about when we had talked about this last week, is that, sure, he's missing out on that $6 million payday now, but look at some of these other guys. Look at all the guys who've been popped before. Then we're talking about high-level athletes like, Luis Ortiz, Alexander Povetkin, the big-time guys. Oddly, they seem to get off all the time. It's just I think it's absurd. I mean, there's evidence that PEDs have lifelong effects. So even if he's not taking them, maybe his body's just absorbed the benefits of at least some of that. And so, again, 6 months, I mean, come on. When these guys are fighting 2 times a year, it's not really doing anything. I mean, it might hurt. I suppose it may hurt somebody like Jarrell Miller because it looks like he likes the buffet line. But, I really don't think this does anything. And a lot of people are praising the WBA because Gilberto Mendoza – well, this is the thing. The suspension, I think, is only for the WBA. I believe this was Gilberto Mendoza Jr.'s decision saying that he's suspended until September 11th, I believe it is. Maybe it's September 19th. Maybe somebody can correct me on that. And he said that when he comes back, he needs to sign up for VADA testing. And again, that's cool, and people are patting Mendoza on the hiney saying, hey, good job, you finally got something right here. But again, it's all in relation to the WBA itself. I mean, can he still pursue the IBF line? I mean, because there's so many different titles, can he just choose to go some other route? And again, 6 months, it's nonsense. I mean, 3 substances, and I saw somebody say like, oh, it's the same suspension that Canelo Alvarez got. Well, we're talking about 3 substances here, and this is actually the second time that he's been popped for PEDs. Again, you pointed out his kickboxing career previously. It's not hard enough. And again, these guys are not going to take these things seriously if you just keep giving them a slap on the wrist. And again, he'll be out 6 months, he'll get a fight, and then he'll be back into contention in just about no time.
All right, Daniel, what's your take on it?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with that too. I've been kind of busy, and I hadn't even heard, how this thing has been unfolding. But if it would have been a first time, this decision, what they're doing, the slap on the wrist they're giving him, I would have been okay. But a second time, a third time, it's not enough. And I'm not surprised. I mean, look at like Jeremiah was just saying. You see it all the time in boxing. Antonio Margarito with his hands of stone, and all these things, and yet they come back and they fight again. Yes, it's the same penalty Canelo got, but just like Jeremiah said, Canelo's was, as far as I know, the first time. So that, to me, that was, equitable.
Well, and the thing is this, with Canelo, the 6-month suspension did nothing but build the fight up bigger. He still got to fight 6 months later. And I think a lot of the problem is you get a guy like Canelo, the slap on the wrist to Canelo, I mean, that kind of trickles down. People see not much happened to him, so maybe we can give it a try. And I think, Daniel, that the first time you do this, you ought to be suspended for 2 years. I mean, it's just what you're doing here is you're getting in a ring with the intent to, let's face it, no matter what anybody says, you're wanting to do a little bit of damage to another person. And if you're on something like this, I mean, that's dangerous.
Yeah, that's the difference. It's a blood sport. And, you're right. I agree with you that the penalties should be stronger. It seems like boxing is just kind of finding its way, and if it ever gets there, I don't know if it ever will. But, in the instance of Canelo, all that did was actually give him more time, to adjust to the higher weight, and it really didn't hurt him at all.
No. So it just made Golovkin 6 months older too.
Exactly. That it played right into his hands. So it's unfortunate, but what can I say about the sport I love?
Yeah, I know. But because the sport's like that, you get to write cool books like Matt Tales.
Oh, there's no end. There's no end to the tales. They just keep building up.
All right. Let's see. Andy Ruiz Jr. has been picked as the lucky challenger to face heavyweight champion Anthony Joshua in a fight that will create a lot of interest on June 1st. So says our favorite boxer writer. Do you know who Aragon Garcia is, Daniel?
I have to admit I don't.
Okay, Aragon Garcia. Yeah, he writes for something called Boxing News 24, and at least 3 times a week he writes something that just shows he's a shill for somebody. And right here, the fact that he puts that this fight will create a lot of interest, I think is nuts, Jeremiah. I think this, for a 5-week replacement plan, I think Ruiz is probably about as good as you can expect to get. He's just coming off a fight, so he will be closer to being in the shape that he normally would be. So I don't think this is a bad fill-in when you consider everything that's went on.
Yeah, he is a shape. I don't know if he's in shape, but he is
round.
A shape, and it's round, yeah. The thing about Andy Ruiz Jr., like you said, on short notice, this is just fine. I don't understand why people are giving Anthony Joshua so much flack. And it's, again, we're not terribly big fans of Joshua on this show, but it's like whenever there's a guy who's popular, you always get a lot of division, and people are playing unnecessary politics with, a person's career. And it's like I've noticed that he's been getting a lot of flack for this. And what do you want him to do? Jarrell Miller is the one who got caught for PEDs. Luis Ortiz said, no, thank you. The money's not enough for me. Andy Ruiz Jr. was in the top 10 before he had a bout of inactivity. So it's not as if this guy is just some low-level operator. This isn't, this is better than Tom Schwartz, okay? This is better than Tyson Fury's opponent, and he very well could be better than Dominic Breazeale. We're talking about 2 bottom-level, top 10-ish kind of guys, when we're talking about Ruiz and Breazeale, but I don't see the problem. It is what it is, and it's perfectly fine in my opinion. To say that this is going to create a lot of buzz, however, is again, we talked about this, I think, last week. If they had time to prepare and this was out in Los Angeles or, somewhere in California, you would create a little bit more buzz, just because of the demographic you'd be aiming your marketing at. But, for what it is, it's fine. I don't get it. I really don't understand. But I did want to ask if you saw you probably don't follow Andy Ruiz Jr. on Twitter, but he had this pretty funny video. So he seems like a guy who has a sense of humor, but he posted this pretty funny video about Anthony Joshua, who was on some PBC boxing show, and he hit that machine, with the speed back looking thing that dangles down.
I did see that, actually.
Yeah, I posted on Facebook today.
That's why I saw it then, because I don't follow Andy Ruiz Jr. I've got better things to do.
Well, he's a big Snickers fan. That's why I follow him.
You can tell.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Snickers and Kit Kat, and he's into all that stuff. But he posted a video of Anthony Joshua punching the machine, and he had what was his score, like 865 or something like that. And then he shows the clip of him punching it, and he's eaten half a Snickers beforehand, and he rocks this thing and gets 937 or something. And he just said it's brought to you by Snickers. Man, you guys got a pretty funny personality, so you got to root for him a little bit. But he's getting stopped here.
All right, so this is Aragon Garcia, Daniel, and this is what he says. Ruiz is definitely not an easy out. Joshua is going to be in a real fight, and if he gets tired like he did in these last 3 fights, he'll get taken out by Ruiz, who may look on the fat side, but he's in great shape.
Well, all I can say is I agree with both of you guys that Andy Ruiz, it's not a bad choice. I mean, who else would you pick that people would be, celebrating over? Maybe Luis Ortiz. But who else? Who? Adam Koznowski, like Jeremiah said, Dominic Brazil. I think Ruiz is on his level. I mean, there's really not much else out there to pick. So I think that Andy Ruiz is a good choice. I don't think he's a huge threat to Anthony Joshua, but I think he could make it interesting. I think he's a capable fighter. He's not in shape, but there's always that thing out there about Anthony Joshua's stamina. I think we'll answer a few questions. We'll know a little more about AJ after this fight. I think Ruiz is capable. I really don't think. I don't think it's a bad choice. In fact, I kind of applaud that choice. I think Ruiz is. I mean, who else? Who else would you pick? Jarrell Miller's out. He wasn't in shape. I mean, he's around too,
Yeah,
and he's
rounder than Ruiz.
He was
exactly.
He was freebasing Snicker bars. He wasn't just eating them.
Well, he was more like an oval. He was more like an oval.
Yeah.
Ruiz is more like a ball, and
exactly.
Miller's more like an.
Well, the disappointing thing is Luis Ortiz asked for $10 million for the fight, which was double what Miller was going to make. And that told me right there Ortiz didn't want to fight, which with his age, I don't know why he wouldn't take the chance.
Right.
Kodnatsky's a guy that I can understand because he's a younger guy. There's no reason to jump into this. You might as well get a full training camp. But I'm disappointed when it comes to Luis Ortiz.
Yeah, that's actually the one I wanted. And I agree with you. I think Luis Ortiz offered $5 million. How old is he? I mean, what do they claim he's 40 and he's really 48 or something?
I think he's like old, put it like this. He just recently got his first introductory possibility of getting an AARP membership, which I think you get at 50.
Exactly.
Come on, dude. I was down in Florida about a year ago, and I saw him at the country buffet. I was right behind him in line, and he got a senior discount. I mean, come on, the dude is not 40.
Plus, he's got the blood pressure medication for the bad heart. But you know what? He almost beat Deontay Wilder, which I think tells us more about Deontay Wilder.
Yeah. He gave him a scare, didn't he?
Yeah,
so I think
did.
Luis Ortiz Luis Ortiz is colorful and a big name, a big puncher. It would have been fun. That would be exciting. But I don't think there's any other name in the heavyweight world out there that really, excites anybody any more than Andy Ruiz does as a last-minute replacement. So Andy Ruiz, coming off a fight, will be in as good a shape as he can be. And he's a hungry, young, confident guy. So, I'm looking forward to the fight. I'm interested.
He's a young, hungry lion.
Yeah.
He's hungry, all right. That's
he's
for
hungry.
Sure.
Hungry.
We know he's hungry.
You're like one of them hungry hippos. Maybe they should have him and Jarrell Miller fight, and then the WBC can create a, Cinco de Mayo hungry hippo belt. They got a belt for everything else.
Let me ask you guys, if Andy Ruiz and Dominic Brazil squared off, who would you be betting on?
Ruiz.
What do you think, Jeremiah?
I don't know.
See, they're comparable, right? I mean,
Yeah,
true,
I
they
say
are. I mean,
Ruiz, but not by
I
much.
have a
I
pro-
just don't think much of Brazil. Hey, wait a
Yeah,
second. We've got somebody new on the show, so I'm going to ask Daniel the question I've been trying to get answered for months, but nobody can answer it.
Uh-oh.
The question is this,
Here it
Daniel.
comes.
How is it that Dominic Brazil is ranked 4th by the WBC, but he's the mandatory challenger?
Oh boy, you're still not going to get an answer.
I knew it. So Matt Tails
who's
2,
ahead of him?
this has got to be in there. Well, you've got Dillian White, who's ranked number 1, but he's not the mandatory challenger because Dominic Brazil is.
I don't have an answer. I'm stumped.
Yeah.
Another Matt Tail.
I need that guy that's the Vegas gambler that's on Jeopardy because he answers every question correctly. We need to get him on the show there, Jeremiah.
Well, if it was a
Boy,
WBA, I wouldn't be as surprised, you know.
Well, they're all the same.
I don't hold them in very
so-
high regard.
Yeah, I don't hold any of them in high regard. But,
Yeah.
I mean, the good thing is Aragon Garcia came out with another article that I haven't got to read yet. So while you guys talk about Jacobs and Canelo, I'm going to read this because De La Hoya tells Jacobs, don't worry about the judges, which is, you know, doesn't really build a lot of confidence here. But when you look at this fight, and we'll start off with Daniel, and then Jeremiah, you can chime in. What do you think determines this fight, number one? And number two, is it already determined unless there's a knockout?
Yeah, I think if I'm in Jacobs' training camp, I'm preparing him for a knockout, to go for a knockout. You don't want this in the hands of the judges. You know, Daniel Jacobs, he seems to me anyway to be a guy that fights up to the level of his opponent. I was really impressed with his performance against Triple G. I think he kind of, took away the aura of invincibility from Triple G. To me, anyway, in my eyes, it seemed like that. And he smoked Kid Chocolate. That was impressive. But then his last fight, let's see, that was against Derevchenko, and the Sulecki fight. I wasn't too impressed. You know, I mean, he didn't look very impressive. So he seems to me to be a guy that fights, you know, that to the level of his opponent, and I'm sure Canelo's going to raise that level up. So I expect a good performance from Danny Jacobs. But I think that Canelo has proven. I mean, he's fought some good names. And I think he's grown into that body. You know, at the 160-pound challenge with Triple G. I was wondering, is he going to be strong enough? Is he, you know, has he grown into that 160 pounds? I think he fought Fielding at 168 for the super middleweight title.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think he's grown into that body, and I think he's just got the experience and the edge, and the you know, what do we say? What do we call them? The intangibles. You know, this question of the judging and all. I mean, he has, you know, people whisper about him being protected, and if that's the case, then you don't want it to go to the judges. But purely on skill, and to me, it's an interesting fight. It's a good matchup that, to me, is a bit of a toss-up, but I lean towards Canelo.
Jeremiah?
Yeah, I don't think people are whispering about the judges anymore. I think they're. I think that's been aired. I mean,
Wait a second, though. Hold
every-
on. Remember this, because Aragon Garcia is
Oh,
about
great.
to speak. And Aragon, if you're out there or anybody that knows him, we would love to have him on the show because he is by far the dumbest, most bought-off boxing writer in history. So we'd love to have you on. But the set of judges that are working Saturday's Canelo versus Jacobs fight are the same three that worked the rematch between Canelo and Triple G last September. However, the general view by 90% of the boxing public was that Canelo deserved to win that rematch with Triple G last September.
Yeah, I want to know where he got those poll numbers. You know, was he sending? What did he get Rasmussen to run a poll or something? I mean,
Yeah, it was a lot closer than the first fight, but I think the majority of the public, Daniel, still thought that Triple G edged the fight.
I had Triple G winning both fights myself.
Me too.
didn't
It's going to be.
I mean, they already took. No, I was just going to say that they. I mean, after both fights, there was some fans that were pretty astute about, polling. I mean, not taking a personal poll, but just grabbing the scorecards of, guys from Ring TV and, all these other places. And once again, as Daniel indicated, the fight was closer, as you indicated, the fight was closer, but it was still a clear majority who favored Golovkin, but the acknowledgement was that it was a bit more competitive. But I don't know who the hell he's talking to. Or I mean, the dude sounds like he's in just hanging out with the WBC guys anyway. So that's probably
remember,
where
he also has
poll
pictures
from.
on his Facebook. Not that I was stalking him, of him and Mauricio Suleiman together too.
Ah.
Oh, Jesus. We called that, didn't we? We called that.
Yeah, and then we looked, and I sent him a friend request, but he won't accept it. I don't know why.
Well, if it goes to the judges, it's going to be interesting.
Well, if he goes to the judges, Canelo's going to win.
Yeah.
So I would say that you give Canelo a slight edge?
I do. Yeah,
Okay.
I give him the slight edge.
Me and Jeremiah don't give her Pixel Friday because everybody will keep listening, just hoping that we'll, let people know what's going to happen ahead of time.
Exactly.
All right, let's talk about real quick the boxing on TV, the landscape with ESPN, PBC, the Showtime Boxing, DAZN. DAZN, to me, blows the competition away, and I think we saw the card of the year Friday night with Estrada beating Rungvisai, Roman Doheny, Soto Vargas. I think that was the first card I've seen all year, Jeremiah, with 3 quality fights on it.
Yeah, and as I noted in my article today, I mean, how do I watch something like that where you get 3 competitive fights, top to bottom? Doheny and Roman, I think, is a candidate for fight of the year. Rungvisai versus Estrada didn't really turn out the way a lot of us thought he would, just because of Rungvisai's baffling
But it was a good
game
fight.
plan. But if it had, and had he fought southpaw the whole time, I mean, imagine what it would have turned out to be. I figure it would have been a lot closer to the first fight. It seemed pretty 50-50 when, he was a lefty. But yeah, I mean, it's like I look at that card. We're talking about Rungvisai and Estrada, who are arguably still pound-for-pound guys, in my opinion. Again, I know a lot of people are going to dock Rungvisai for his strategy, but again, you look at him when he was lefty, and again, I think it was pretty damn close. But it just makes it hard to justify paying $65.99 plus for a pay-per-view when I'm getting that. It's not only that. I mean, I get the World Boxing Super Series afterwards. And it's not Nonito Donaire's fault, but his opponent was supposed to be Tate, and that would have been an interesting bout as well. I mean, most people favored Tate, and a lot of people were hoping that he would go to the finals and fight Inoue. And, Donaire, I like the guy a lot, but he's gotten a little lucky with the 2 injuries there. But, I get to see Prograis look like a burgeoning world-class talent against Relic. And, again, you combine those 2 things together, and it's like, wow, why would I bother paying for Crawford Khan or any of these other things we've seen? I mean, we've been over this on the shows many, many times, but how many genuine fight of the year candidates do you get from pay-per-views, or how many finalists, or, people who actually win? It's few and far in between. These things, to me, are not a value, and that's why I don't pay for them. I just don't, bother with it, because it's, I'm getting a bunch of prospects who are beating up on guys. What you see is a lot of what we saw against the, in the Crawford contest, where you get, you get Teofimo Lopez fighting Edis Tatley, a guy who's a non-puncher. Shakir Stevenson versus Christopher Davis was a little bit more interesting, but you have this all the time. What did you have in the card before, though? I don't think it was a pay-per-view. You had, you got guys like Devin Haney and Alexander Vesputin and guys like that. They're just not fighting guys who are real competitive, and the fights themselves haven't been particularly interesting. So what it does for me is it just devalues the pay-per-view model even more. And you got to give credit where credit is due. A lot of these people are acting tribal now with promotional entities and TV networks, but you just got to learn to – you got to get over that and try and get the best fights available, regardless of who's on what team, and that's the game I play. But you got to give DAZN a hand. You got to give them a pat on the back for what they did on Friday and Saturday. It was just good TV.
All right, Daniel?
I agree, but you're talking to the low-tech king here. I don't get DAZN or ESPN Plus. I'm still a TV guy. But
well, you don't get to see much anything anymore, do you?
No, I'm
Garcia
really,
and Granados.
So I catch them on replays and all that. But as far as pay-per-view, yeah, I mean, like look at the Earl Spence, Mikey Garcia. That was really disappointing. Pretty much a non-battle. I mean, you got what's Amir Khan doing on headlining a pay-per-view? That's just. I couldn't believe it. I just think that's ridiculous. And then, to charge full price for that. So I don't order many pay-per-views either. I mean, of course, I'm on the retired mailman budget, so I really got to watch things.
I thought mailmen made good money, Daniel.
When they're working, they do. When they're retired, it's not what you think.
Oh, so the pension's like an NFL player from the 50s?
Exactly. That's right. I'm glad I have it, but, yeah, pay-per-view is just not – it's not there anymore. It's not, and I could see that coming, and things are changing. I also applaud DAZN. I think that last card I've heard nothing but good things about, good competitive bouts, matchmaking, and all. Hats off to them, But there's, it's a shame because there's so many good matches to be made. But with the little kingdoms, the different promotional groups not wanting to fight each other, here we go again,
Yeah, and it gets old because I would love to see Crawford and Spence, and I think Crawford and Spence is a fight that I would actually pay to see.
Yes, me too. Same thing, exactly.
Well, Jeremiah won't, because Jeremiah won't even pay for cable. That's why he was quiet when you were talking.
Okay. Yep, no, I don't pay for anything, man. Until these guys get their act together, they can't have any of my damn money.
Oh, come on. If they got their acts together, you still wouldn't pay.
Yes, I would. Yeah, well, it depends on the model they go with. I mean, shit. I mean, if they're doing, like WWE and, most of these things are free, and then they do like a WrestleMania type card where you get like Crawford Spence headlining, and then you get Lomachenko Garcia under it or something crazy like that, I'd be dishing out $80-$90 for that. But, it's just too fractured, and we're just getting a lot of posing and posturing, and most of the cards are shit, and I can't tell you how many guys I've seen on Twitter lately who, I'm talking about hardcore boxing people who are like, I just kind of bored with the sport, it lacks character building, it lacks quality fights. You can't expect the best to fight the best in a timely fashion. It lacks excitement, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Well,
right
I remember I used to dream in the old days. Now I'm going back to my era back in the old day. Don King, Cedric Kushner, Bob Arum.
Oh, yeah. Don King would put up some cards.
He would put up some cards with 4 world-class. I have posters out in my garage that, I can't believe it happened. These were some well worth the money, with Terry Norris and Julio Cesar Chavez. And, you'd go down the line, you'd have like 4 top-notch headlining fights on the same card. And, say what you want about Don King, but hey, to me, the man put on some great events. I miss it. You just don't see it like that anymore. Now you got the one name fight, and then underneath it are just showcase fights for the up and coming fighters for that promoter. It's just not what I want. So
well, see, Jeremiah's really young, and I was trying to explain to him because he was talking about, he looked it up, and the amount of people that saw all these Spinks too. And I'm telling him, on the undercard of that, you had Victor Galindez against Mike Rossman, and you had Danny Little Red Lopez defending his title.
Yeah, man, I'm telling you, those were the days. And here we go again. I hate to be the old man, Sonny, in my day.
But it's true in this case.
It's true. I can't get away from it.
You would get a triple header card on ABC on a Friday or Saturday night with Larry Holmes defending his title, Sugar Ray Leonard fighting on it, and Marvin Hagler.
Yeah. Oh, come on. That's awesome. I mean, I miss those days, Mike.
Me too.
You're hurting me here.
Jeremiah's too young. He just remembers like Bob Arum's classic undercards of Butterbean fighting a guy that was 6-19, and Mia St. John fighting some hopeless woman.
Yes, exactly. Oh boy.
Yeah. No, my era is more, top rank stuff where, you'd have Manny Pacquiao against some in-house fighter like, Timothy Bradley or whoever, and that's what you'd get. Like you already said, we'd get a bunch of prospects, and it's never been appealing, and this is why I almost never pay for a pay-per-view fight unless somebody else is chipping in. I mean, shit, if my brother and my father come over and we're like, hey, we'll go a third. Yeah, I mean, I think I purchased, Golovkin Alvarez too, but, besides that, it's
yeah, but you know what? That was
between.
a fight. Even if you paid full price, the fight was worth it, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a damn good fight. Well, and the thing about it too, but the production was horrible.
And the undercard sucked.
What was it? Yeah, that's what I mean. The undercard was crap. I think you had 3 quick knockouts. And
was that the one where they had like 2 hours of killing time?
Yeah, exactly. Because I think Lemieux was on the undercard, and he beat who was it?
Spike O'Sullivan.
Yeah, Spike O'Sullivan. He whipped his butt in less than a round. You just had a bunch of quick knockouts, and then you had to fill the air with Jim Lampley crying. What else? I can't remember.
He cries all the time now. I think he's postmenopausal.
He needs to go get some testosterone replacement therapy because he's been real bad anymore.
Well, maybe he could just go to Terrell Miller's gym and get it.
Well, it would improve his stamina at least, right?
Yeah, get some clenbuterol so he can get a little bit more muscle tone. He could go hang out with the Alvarezes and he could have it made. But, and the production level of almost all of these anymore. I don't want to hear Mario Ronaldo or whatever his name scream like it's a soccer game.
Every once in a while they will get my money.
Yeah, every once in a while.
Yeah, well, my problem is that the more the sport becomes fractured, the more you hear cheerleaders for these guys, right? So you have DAZN and their team. Like listening to Joe Tessitore, for instance, during the Amir Khan, Terrence Crawford telecast. He was a cheerleader, man. He had his pom-poms on. He was using all these hyperbolic terms like, oh, what a fantastic performance, and that was brilliant, and this and I'm like, he beat Christopher Diaz, man. Pump the brakes, okay? Let's take it easy here.
But you know what, guys? I think he knows what he has to do. Look what happened to Teddy Atlas. If you don't do that, you might be out. So I think these guys are getting the message that you got to be cheerleaders if you want to keep this job, and it's unfortunate, but they're doing what they got to do.
Yeah, Jeremiah. Well, if you ever do what you're supposed to do.
I don't know. I'm just.
You got to be a cheerleader for Mike Goodpaster.
There you go. I don't know, Daniel. You ever think about hosting a daily boxing show with me? I'm kidding, Jeremiah. I love you. But not in a gay way.
Jeremiah Atlas, are you going to lose your job here or what?
No, Jeremiah's untouchable.
Yeah. Hey, I've earned my stripes. I've been hanging out with this dude for 3+ years.
What the hell does that mean? I mean, you got to hang out with Mike McCallum, Mark Breland. I mean, it hadn't been that bad of a gig, has it?
No. Virgil Hill, hell, all sorts of dudes. Ruben Castillo. We've talked to a lot of guys.
Oh, you've had some amazing guests on this show, man. Some big names.
Yeah, we've had a few.
They always
George
ask
Foreman,
us. We
Larry
never ask them.
Holmes, Jerry Cooney.
Yeah.
Jerry Cooney was my favorite, though.
Was he? Jerry Cooney? Yeah, you had him on recently, wasn't it? Not too long ago?
He was about a year ago. I repost stuff every once in a while just in case somebody misses it. So I really have. Yeah. We haven't done a Legends show on any sport in a while because we've been so busy with the NCAA basketball tournament and then the NFL draft. Mm-hmm. But I know we are close to getting Andre Reed and Willie Roaf for the NFL Legends show. I just got to send a text to their agent. But yeah. Jeremiah's been.
Did you ever track down Lee Canalito?
No, I forgot all about that. I got to get Louis Burke on yet too.
You were looking for.
Yeah, I got to get Louis Burke on too. And you told me you could get a hold of Lee.
I said I would try.
Oh, so you couldn't get a hold of him
I can get
either?
to Louis Burke for sure.
I got Lee Canelito's phone number to his gym, but nobody ever answers.
Oh, man.
I know.
Yeah. I'd like to hear you talk to him. I'd like to hear what you can dig out of him.
I'd
what
like
he's
to
up
talk
these
to him
days.
just to find out. See, Jeremiah's over there wondering who the hell Lee Canelito is right now.
Exactly. Yep, I'll bet.
Jeremiah,
idea.
do you know
No
who
idea.
Lee Canelito
No
is?
idea. No, I don't. I have no idea who that is.
He was the Great White Hope at one point. Did he knock
minute.
out everybody he fought, and then he fought like to a decision with somebody, and then nobody ever heard from him again?
The old story, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was a
Oh.
big white heavyweight. Dude,
He was called the Italian Stallion, I believe.
yeah, because he
out of
was
Houston,
wasn't he
Texas.
trained by Sylvester Stallone or something?
Oh, I didn't know that.
I thought he
But I
was.
know he-
Well, actually, he was trained by Angelo Dundee. And Richie Giacchetti became his trainer after he split with Dundee. And after seeing him box on television, I think what it was is Stallone cast Canelito on Paradise Alley.
Oh, okay. I did not know that.
Yeah, and
But
he
did
was.
you know he retired? Did you know he retired undefeated?
Yeah. And did
Yeah,
you know
20
that the total record of his opposition at the time of meeting was 165 and 225? And Sylvester Stallone managed him. So
Oh boy. Oh no.
that's why
Wow.
it would be interesting. Sylvester Stallone managed him, and that was after, I think there was like a Texas Millionaire or something that it managed him at first, but I think he was 21-0 with 19 knockouts, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's his record exactly.
Yeah, but he was in Paradise Alley, and he hung out with Rocky Balboa, so you can't get better than that, Jeremiah.
No, it sounds like for a guy who never made it to the world class level, he had a nice little life there, huh?
Yeah, but he
Yeah,
just
he did beat
disappeared.
He did beat Steve Zuski.
Steve Zalski. Now, come on. I love bad white
Zalski,
heavyweights. You
Zalski.
can't butcher Steve Zalski's name. Steve Zalski got beat by everybody. But you know the interesting thing, if you watch, let's see, I've got a DVD of the entire Cooney Norton card, and actually the first fight on that card was Marvis Frazier against Steve Zalski. And actually Zalski gave him a hard time. That was before Zalski had given up.
Mm-hmm.
And just
Oh,
took
wow.
ass whoopings all the time to make money. But yeah, Zalski... Yeah, because Zalski, I think he also lost to the immortal Scott Frank, Tony Tubbs, but the start of it all for him was Marvis Frazier, because I think when he fought Frazier, I think Frazier was one of his first fights, and Zalski came in against Frazier, and he was something like 20-1 or something, and Marvis beat the hell out of him, and then it was all downhill from there. Marvis was actually 3-0. I just looked it up.
Yeah.
And the referee was Billy Graham, not the preacher.
Oh wow. Not the preacher, the boxer.
At least, I don't think it's the preacher, but we'll have to get Jeremiah to look into that and figure it out. But,
Oh.
all right, so see, I told you we would be unprepared, but it would lead somewhere. And the show led to Lee Canelito. And if anybody knows where Lee is, I would like to get Lee on just as bad as I would Aragon Garcia.
Exactly.
All right, so Matt
Oh.
Tales 2, have you started working on the book yet?
You know, it's funny, Mike. The last time I was on your show, we were talking about it, and you asked me, you know, how's it going? Or actually, my wife was listening with me. We were watching it on YouTube, listening to it, and she said, "So how many tales do you got?" I said, on the show, I said, "I've got 6 done." She said, "How many do you have now?" I said, 7. That was a year ago.
You can just make it a smaller book.
So I've got some work to do, but I am getting serious now, finally.
All right. How about when Vampire Johnson came out of the coffin to fight Frank Fletcher?
Oh, love it. Love it. Yeah, that's a possibility. You know what I have? I have a big plastic bag full of, every time when I'm cataloging my fights in my collection here, because I got this massive collection, believe it or not, VHS tapes and DVDs, thousands.
Yeah, me
And
too.
every time
My
I see
wife
a
wants to know
crazy-
why I won't throw them away. Go ahead.
Yeah, you have a massive collection too. every time I come across a crazy happening, I just make a little note card and I throw it in that plastic bag. So I've got this bag full of crazy things, and I'm going to have to pick a bunch out of that bag. So that'll be fun.
Yeah,
but
come on, Jeremiah, any help? You remember any crazy stuff that he should write about?
Oh, man. Again, I'm a little bit younger, so I'm trying to think of what the hell.
A little bit. That's nice.
Yeah.
Like I'm thinking about the Tyson Holyfield bite fight.
Yeah,
right?
but everybody remembers that. You got to have a hook outside of that.
Well,
it's still fun to write about.
What were we?
Yeah,
what were we talking about not long ago? The fight we were watching. So, Zarate versus Zamora.
Oh, yeah, Zarate Zamora, where you had the guy run into the ring and then the cops tackle him, beat the hell out of him, and then...
Yes, I remember that.
And then you had... The thing I forgot about that until I started looking into it, because we always do an On This Day at the end of each show, and it was the fact that I think Zarate's dad and Zamora's trainer actually got in a fist fight, and they'd actually had a SWAT team at the arena for that fight anyways because they thought something bad would happen. But that is a good one, Jeremiah.
Well,
yeah, that is a good one.
The Samson Puja Andrew Galata fight, and I think I'd like Mike to, pitch in on that one a little bit, and we'll get into the book.
Mike remembers that. I remember watching.
You remember that one?
Yeah, I remember
watching.
Jeremiah
remember that one.
Because no, Jeremiah's not. Jeremiah was like in a crib right then.
Oh, was he? Okay.
Right, Jeremiah.
He was biting on a pacifier.
Yeah, Jeremiah had a pacifier. Which kept him, the reason he had the pacifier, he was 12, and the problem was he liked to bite people, so he had to wear a pacifier all the time.
But that was a war. Boy, that was a heck of a fight, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, and if Puja wasn't 6 foot and weighed 300 pounds, he might have beaten Galata, and I think that's the first time Galata had ever been in any kind of trouble, and I think he showed you the precursor of what was to come.
Yes, he did, exactly.
Now, the thing that I didn't understand was Eddie Cotton the referee in that fight?
I believe he was, yeah.
Okay.
I think it was Eddie Cotton.
And you see Galata, kind of do something there, and then you see Puja start to jump around, if I remember right. I got to watch this again before I write it for you, but I think he jumped around like he was bit. Eddie Cotton never went to look at him to see what was wrong. And towards the end of the fight, you can see where there's a red mark where he got bit.
Yeah, on the broadcast, I think they even zoomed in on it, and there's this, red bite mark on his.
Yeah, but nobody ever did anything about it. And the thing that was amazing is I think it was Sean O'Grady and Al Albert. After they showed the replay, they're both like, yeah, he definitely bit him. And then they just went on and kept calling the fight like nothing ever happened.
Exactly.
And I'm thinking, really?
Besides the bite, that was a down and dirty, monster, rugged fight. I mean, that was just brutal, man. It was an all-time. I think it was a classic myself.
Well, Jeremiah's never seen it because he only believes boxing happened before 1980 and then after 2003.
Okay.
Basically. I got a big blind spot there. I'm sorry.
Maybe you could do a Lee Canelito fight.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what, really, honestly, to me it seems like it wasn't that long ago that people were asking me all the time, is boxing dead? Is MMA killing boxing? Is it over? Is it the end of boxing? I was hearing that all the time. And, yes, now it's broken up with all these promotional groups and all that. But I must say, it seems to me that boxing has made a pretty good comeback. It does seem to be a little more interest in the game. And, there's a lot of boxing available out there on different platforms,
Well, I think
that way anyway.
In the end, if boxing gets killed, it's going to be a suicide. It's not going to be because of the UFC.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah, it's tried. It's tried many times.
Oh, it's trying like hell right now, I think. But
it seems to bounce back. I mean, the heavyweight picture was completely dead to me. And now there's just a few guys at the top, but those few for now are holding it, with Wilder and Joshua, Fury. And then there's a few guys coming up that are Daniel Dubois and, you just Effie Ajagba kind of coming up. But I mean, it seems like boxing has made a pretty good comeback.
Well, it's human nature.
There's some interest there.
I mean, have you ever been in a bar where a fight started and not everybody stood around and watched it? Or if a fight happens in the street, everybody runs to watch the fight. So I think it's human nature that people want to see each other fight, Jeremiah.
Yeah, no, I think Max Kellerman said something similar where he said, hey, if you're watching, would you rather watch a guy pitch to basically would you rather watch a guy pitch a ball to a guy and hit it, or would you rather watch a fist fight? I mean, obviously the natural intrigue is there, right? There's an inclination to tune into that sort of stuff. But here's my thing about all the promotional entities and all the TV entities. It's good that there's easier access to boxing, but ultimately, what good is it going to do if you're not having the best fight the best? I mean, that's a complaint we've had for many, many years now. It's like you can't expect these guys, the best guys, to fight. I mean, look at Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford. That's probably not happening until 2021 about. Because it seems quite clear now that Errol Spence is going to be fighting Sean Porter next, and then Keith Thurman, or Manny Pacquiao, whoever wins that fight. And then after that, I suppose it could happen by late 2021, or it could happen by early 2022. But it's just it doesn't happen. I mean, and like the rate at which these guys unify titles, and I'm talking about becoming quote unquote undisputed. Even that is a misnomer, or it could be a misnomer as well, because as I've talked about, you could potentially be the lineal champion and somebody else could hold all four belts. I mean, it's possible, right? I mean, like we talked about in the heavyweight division, if you think Tyson Fury is still the lineal champion and Anthony Joshua ends up beating Deontay Wilder and he's got all the belts, again, you've got a conflict there. But this is the thing. It's like every lunar eclipse, you get, a quote-unquote undisputed champion. I mean, you're just getting far less value out of boxing overall than you are other sports. I know in baseball, even if you think it's boring, I know they're going to play at the end of the year, and you're going to have a World Series champion. I know who the man is, right? Or I know who the team is. It's the same thing with NBA here soon, the NHL soon. I get it every single year, but in boxing, you just never know. I mean, these guys are just bickering at one another. There's lawsuits, this and that. It's just it's disappointing. And again, even if it's more easily accessible, I don't necessarily think that's going to bring boxing out of the niche. I mean, these guys just don't see eye to eye. I mean, you've got Arum talking crap about Eddie Hearn all the time. He's talking crap about Al Heyman all the time. Al doesn't say anything at all, but you know that he doesn't think much of Bob Arum. It's just, I don't know. I think it's a mess, to be honest with you. I mean, I do like there is increased exposure, and guys like Anthony Joshua can bring this to a greater amount of people. But when he's fighting on DAZN and he's fighting in front of 30,000 viewers or whoever, however many people it is that are tuning in, it's just, and then you got ESPN putting the big fights on their app, where less viewership is happening there as well. It's just these companies, we've talked about this at length on the show too, is that, places like DAZN and ESPN don't necessarily have the long-term interest of boxing at heart. I mean, ESPN's been dealing with boxing for many, many years now. And they very well could just be doing like DAZN is doing, and they're just trying to get up their subscriber base. That was John Eisenhower's thinking, that DAZN's like, hey, we're just getting all these niche sports until we can build towards the rights for baseball and football and all the other big brands. And why wouldn't you? I mean, if you're DAZN, if you're putting your CEO cap on, why would you invest in the long-term health of boxing? Again, it's so fractured. Again, you're getting less value for it. And with NBA and MLB and even the UFC, it's a league. And when you have a unified vision and you can market, right, instead of worrying about the squabbles of these separate fiefdoms, you have a unified vision and you can market as such. You're going to win that way, or at least you're going to do a better job than you are with boxing. So I just don't know. I'm not exactly sure. The thing about boxing, too, is it relies on poverty. So, the demographics shifts of boxing are constant as well. So I just don't know what the long-term health of boxing is, but it's just I don't think it's in a good place now. Again, I've complained about this a lot. I don't like where it's at.
He complains all the time. It's kind of like being on the phone with my wife when we do these shows.
But, that's totally valid. Jeremiah, you make total sense. Everything you said just struck me, just totally right on the money. You're right on the money. And I think, boxing the way it is now, it may be good for the hardcore boxing nuts like myself and others, like you guys, I guess. But it's not going to draw the common fan, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not... it's not unified. It's not unified enough to where there's a big name that's going to fight a big name that everyone knows. Look how it was with Mike Tyson, how it was with Oscar De La Hoya. Everybody knew them. Everybody was interested. On a Tyson fight night, it's like the world shut down, And I guess way back in the old days, it was like that with Joe Louis and Rocky Marciano. It's not so much that way anymore. When is it like that, really? It's pretty rare.
Yeah, and I want to go to your point real quick. So something you said just kind of brought something out in me, and it's when you said, that boxing, I mean, you guys are reflecting on your golden age, and we're talking about 30, 40 years ago, right? So boxing in today's market, whether you're a musician or an entertainer in general, you have far more access to revenue streams than ever. Right? The marketing on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, when we do these podcasts, SoundCloud and Podbean and Luminary and iTunes, et cetera, it just shows you that boxing's in a poor state when it has all this access and still can't get its crap together, right? It's still a niche sport. Yeah. I mean, you have a microphone to the world in these platforms, and they still suck. They're running on these old business models, and it's just not working. That's why a place like the NBA is doing okay, because they brand build. I mean, who guys like LeBron James are, and, James Harden. I don't even follow basketball, but I can't get away from some of these guys, right? I mean, they're popping up in my email feed, they're popping up in my social media feed, et cetera, et cetera. So, boxing is just not in a good spot. And then, you get even further into the mess, and you roll up your sleeves and dig down in the swamp, and you got too many titles and too many weight classes, and it's all just confusing. Even if you could market this to more fans, they're still going to be like, what the hell is going on? Like I used this example before, but Jim Lampley had I can't remember the lady's name on now, but on the Fight Game, he interviewed this lady who works for ESPN, and he was like, hey, do you follow boxing? And she's like, no, it's too confusing. I don't know who the champ is, who's fighting who belongs to who. And these guys don't get it. They're just doubling down on systems that aren't advancing the sport. It's more about their wallets and not, again, the value for the fan.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Boxing's the Wild West of sports, isn't it?
Hey, which leads to Mat Tales. True stories from the bizarre, brutal world of pro boxing by Dan Sisneros. And you had a guy that we had as a guest about a year and a half or so ago, right to forward, Mike Hercules Weaver, who at one point was the WBA heavyweight champion of the world.
Yeah. Oh, I was honored to have Mike Weaver.
Oh, yeah, he's a great guy, too.
Yeah, he's really a good guy. I'm just so glad he got on board. And he'll be appearing in a Mat Tale in the second book, I think, too. He was involved in a few crazy things.
Which fight you going to put him in this time?
That one, the next one's going to be when he fought a guy named Tony Anthony. And you probably don't know that fight, and I'm not sure if it's on YouTube. It probably is. Look it up, and it's pretty entertaining.
That would have been mid to late 80s?
I believe it was. Yeah, it would have to be mid to late 80s. It got a little crazy. Anthony actually hit Mike after the bell and just, dinged him pretty bad. Mike's wobbling back to his corner, but he's okay, but he's wobbling back. And the guy runs at him and punches him and knocks him down, knocks the snot out of him. And the referee, I think it was Mills Lane, just waves it off, said, that's it, fight's over. It's crazy. And Mike makes some remarks on it, remembering back how he thought, I can't believe what this guy just did to me. It's pretty fun.
Tony Anthony. I remember Tony Anthony. I don't remember that fight, I don't think. But Was that I think that was the fight right before Weaver got the shot against Pinklon Thomas, wasn't it?
Oh, as far as when, let me see. I'm looking at it right now on Box Rec. Let me see here. Tony Anthony. Boy, that was way back. Yeah, it was right before he fought. The next fight after that was Pinklon
Thomas. Yeah, it was like 84 or 85.
That would have been 84. Yeah, it was in November of 84. It was a DQ1. It was the first round.
Was it a first round? Yeah.
First round. It was the end of the first round. I think the bell rang. The bell rang, and then Anthony pops him, wobbles him pretty badly, but he's okay, and he wobbles. He's really stepping in post holes, going back to his corner. And I don't know what got into Anthony. He just runs at him and punches him in the head and knocks him down, man.
Well, and that led to he fought Pinklon Thomas and got stopped. And then one of my favorite Mike Weaver fights is when he fought Carl the Truth Williams, and he knocked him out like
Pinklon Thomas.
Yeah, it was like in the second round, and I think that was at 86. But it was like the second round. But everybody thought Williams was supposed to be the next big thing, because he'd gotten close to beating Larry Holmes, an older Larry Holmes. But Weaver starched him with a huge punch. And I think the undercard fight to that was Tyson and Marvis Frazier, wasn't it?
Let's see. That would have been Jesse Ferguson.
Jesse Ferguson. All right, it was the Ferguson fight. I knew it was one of the two.
Yeah, that was the Ferguson fight. Right. Actually, pretty good card.
Yeah,
Frank
a lot
Tate
better.
Fought on, yeah. And
except
Calvin
for the
Grove
part where Marvis Frazier was on it. Yeah, it was a pretty good card. All right,
Poor
Jeremiah,
Marvis.
anything before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I wanted to say, Daniel, if you needed a source maybe for some crazy stories, I would direct you to Rick Ferris if you know who that is. I mean, I think he's a director for the West Coast Boxing Hall of Fame. He used to be a fighter, not a particularly good one, but he's a nice guy. And he trained with all sorts of, like bantamweight legends back then, used to be in the gym, has pictures with Sugar Ray Robinson, tons of pictures. I know with, what was the one I posted with Sugar Ray Robinson, Alexis Arguello. He told me an interesting story about, who was it? Raul Rojas, who I think was briefly an alphabet title holder for, you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, I remember Raul Rojas.
Yeah. So
he used to fight in LA.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he told me an interesting story the other day about how Rojas was kind of taking it. So Ken Buchanan was originally supposed to fight Mando Ramos.
Mando Ramos.
And Ramos ended up getting hurt, and so Rojas became a replacement. And he was talking about how Rojas was drinking heavily and they had to carry him home or something like that. I'd have to look at it. I can't quite remember. But yeah, I think he would probably be a good source for stories. I'm sure the guy has a ton of them to tell. I mean, he used to be pretty active on the old AOL forums as well.
Okay, Rick Ferris. I'm gonna try to hook up with him, see what he can do. That's great. Thanks for the lead.
Yeah, no problem.
All right.
And if you guys think of any crazy fights that come up, send me a Facebook message or anything, or get a hold of me and let me know.
I just gave you one, but I don't remember what it was now. Remember? What the hell was it?
You gave me one?
Yeah, we gave you the idea. What was the fight, Jeremiah? Come on.
Oh, you're talking about
you mean tonight?
Zarate versus Zamora?
Yeah, Zarate and Zamora.
Yeah, when that crazy fan jumped in the ring. Yeah, I have that one.
I'll tell you another one. Do you know John Raspani?
I know who he is, yeah.
Yeah, we can hook you with John. He knows a lot of people out on the West Coast because he's been taking pictures all day with Danny Little Red Lopez and Armando Muniz and all those guys on, at the National Boxing Hall of Fame. John didn't invite us, but that's all right.
A couple of my friends got inducted there.
Probably worth hooking up with John Scully, too.
Yeah, ring announcer Amy Hayes and Jimbo Amato.
Okay.
National Boxing Hall of Fame. I don't know if you know them.
Yeah, I know who they are. Yeah.
Yeah, they both got inducted.
Hayes,
so. Yeah.
I remember Amy Hayes. She's kind of hard to forget in the boxing world. I mean,
yeah, she kind of stood out.
She's not. She's a bit easier on the eyes than the normal announcers. But yeah, Jimbo. He's a lot sexier. She's a lot sexier than Lennon. But no, Jimbo Amato I know too. He's a historian. I know he's I wrote an interesting article on Harada for Bad Left Hook. He's written a book. Then he runs a couple of Facebook groups himself. So yeah, he actually helped me get into the International Boxing Research Organization.
Oh, cool. Yeah, Jimbo's a great guy, and I met him way back. We used to trade VHS tapes of boxing for our collections. That's how I met him, and we've been friends ever since. Great guy.
Hey guys, I hate to bring this up, but I really didn't know who Amy Hayes was. But now that I'm looking up images, I really want to have her on the show.
Yeah, actually, I became pretty good friends with Amy. She was looking for some videotape of the old fight cards she used to do for Fox and ESPN actually, and I had a couple of those for her and sent them on to her. So. So we kind of become pretty good friends. I wrote another book I wrote is called Disney Tale of the Tape, Theme Park Boxing. It's not boxing. It's a Disney book, but I match up rides and experiences at like Disneyland and Disney World, and they go head to head. And I do it in a boxing match format. And I wrote her in as the ring announcer in a few of the matches. So that we kind of became friends that way too. So yeah, she got inducted too, and I was really glad for her.
All right. I think I do
write her in as a
remember
guest
now,
here.
But, huh?
I said write her in as a guest here.
Yeah, okay, yeah. If you want her, I can tell you how to get a hold of her.
I don't know. We'll have to think about that one, Jeremiah. You're liable to embarrass us on that one.
I think you'll behave.
Well, that's all right, man. Years down the road, we can reflect on that experience.
I'll behave. I can't promise Jeremiah will.
I mean, that could turn into a Matt Tale in the future.
There you go. We could be in the Matt Tale book. But, all right, guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up tonight. Make sure you check out Matt Tales by Dan Sisneros.
True stories from the bizarre, brutal world of pro boxing on Amazon.
I put the book under my desk when I was reading it before, but hold on here when we get off, and that way I don't have to call and thank you, because I got a couple other things to tell you. But we are going to go ahead and wrap the show up for tonight. We'll be back tomorrow night, 11 o'clock, Inside Boxing Daily. Also, tomorrow, Jeremiah has been waiting with bated breath for this because he doesn't know what cornhole is. But on Survive and Advance with myself and 1981 Indiana National Champion Steve Risley. Well, tomorrow we are going to interview Frank Gears, the president of the American Cornhole Organization, who has told me that he will allow me to play in an event in Cincinnati, June 13th and 14th, and report back on it. And I'm thinking, Jeremiah, this is going to lead to me probably being a world champion.
Yeah, you probably won't have time for the show after that.
I know. I'll be making the big bucks as the greatest cornholer of all time. I will be the GOAT of cornhole, just like Clarissa Shields is the GWOAT of women's boxing. But I think probably being the greatest cornhole player of all time would be more significant. All right, guys, we're going to wrap the show up. I want to remind you can hear all the shows on iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Spotify, Zeno, Rive Radio, and over 200 other platforms, which I don't have time to read them all off right now because it's getting close to my bedtime because I'm getting up there in age and it's almost midnight where I live. So we're going to wrap it up, guys. For Daniel Sisneros, Jeremiah Preisser, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.